Today is Monday, October 27th. Sorry I'm absent today. I will be out today and Tuesday and Wednesday, guys. So Mrs. Gray is my sub, and she's always a great sub for me. So please be on your best behavior while I'm gone. I expect great reports when I return. Okay, this is just a reminder that this video can be paused at any moment so that you can catch up on discussions or copying notes, but I'm just going to talk through the whole lesson straight through. So here's your warm-up. You should have been working on your warm-up paper that goes in your binder, not in your spiral. So you have 6 problems. You can pause this video to get them completed. Mrs. Gray will probably give you about 5 minutes to complete this. You may use your notes to help you. Now I'm going to work through all the problems for the answers. So on number 1, it says convert 12/100% to a fraction. Well, we know that percent means out of 100, so you would put 12/100 over 100. Make sure you have the decimal in your numerator. Remember we talked about that when we filled out our foldable. Putting 12 over 100 would mean 12%. This says 0.12%. Now, to eliminate the decimal in our numerator, we can move the decimal point 2 places to the right in the numerator and the denominator, which would give us 12 over 10,000. I actually believe this is the exact example that's in your foldable, so that's pretty helpful. And then simplify your fraction by dividing by 4 over 4, which would give you 3 over 2,500. So that's number 1. Check your work. Number 2, it says convert 87/100 to a fraction. Well, if you read your decimals mathematically, you would automatically hear the fraction, which is 87/100. And this is in simplest form, so that's your answer. Number 3, it says convert 31 over 500 to a percent. Okay, we know that the word percent means out of 100. How can I get my denominator to be 100? Well, I could take 500 and divide it by 5, couldn't I? Which I need to do the same thing to the numerator. Now, when I divide 31 by 5, that gives me 6.2. Hopefully you did that in math. 6.2. And remember, when I read my fraction, I can say it's 6.2 %. The bar means per, the 100 means cent. So you heard me say the percent automatically, 6.2%. Now, yes, there are multiple ways that you could have done this problem. Here's another way. Some of you might have seen it as 31 over 500, and then you said, well, oh, excuse me, I wrote 5,000. 500, there we go. 31 over 500, and you probably didn't want to have a decimal in your fraction, which that's fine. So some of you maybe multiplied by 2 to get your denominator to be 1,000, and then 31 times 2 is 62. Well, if I read this fraction, I see that it says 62 thousandths, and here's my decimal when I say 62 thousandths. To make a decimal a percent, you know that you're supposed to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So you would still get 6.2%. Okay? Number 4, like I said, I'm going to just keep moving straight through. You're welcome to pause the video at any time, but I'm going to erase this. Number 4 says convert 7/80ths to a decimal. Well, I look at my denominator and I notice that I cannot make that a decimal place value, so I'm going to go ahead and divide 7 by 80. Some of you might see another pattern, which we'll talk about in a second. So, can't put 80 into 7, so add a decimal point and a 0. I still cannot put 80 into 70, so that's 0. Add another one. 80 into 700 is 8. Because that would be 640 when I multiply, and when I subtract, I have 60 left over. Add another 0, bring it down. 80 into 600 is 7 times, because that would be 560, and when I subtract, I get 40. Add another 0, bring it on down. 80 into 400 is 5 times, because that would give me exactly 400. So my decimal for 7/80ths is 875 10,000ths. Now, some of you might have noticed, wow, this is pretty close to 7/8. 7/8, which we know as a memorized conversion is 875 thousandths. But notice my denominator is 10 times greater, which means that my decimal could be divided by 10, and you could get 875 10,000ths that way. But again, if you don't see it like that automatically, it's okay. You can divide like normal. Number 5, convert 3 5/6 to a percent. Now, you should notice right away, this mixed number is way greater than 1. So you should expect the percent to be what? Greater than 100. If you don't get a percent greater than 100, you know you did something wrong. Always check for reasonableness in the beginning. The first thing I would like to do here is I would like to convert this number to a decimal. I know 5/6 is a memorized conversion, so that's 3.83 repeating, just the 3 repeating. To convert a decimal to a percent, I move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So that's 383, but my 3 was repeating, and I know 0.3 repeating is 1/3. So 383 1/3%. And the last one, number 6. Convert 8 7/25 to a decimal. Okay, so 8 I can just leave alone. 7/25, I'd like to get that to a place value that I know. Well, I can multiply 25 by 4 to give me 100. So do the same thing to the numerator, and that would be 8 28/100ths, which you should have heard me say the decimal, 8 28/100ths. Again, you should still be using your notes to make sure you're getting all these rules down. We will have a test over this next week, so be studying. This warm-up was just good review for you to keep up your skills. Put this in your binder, put your warm-up in your binder, and we're going to check homework. Miss Gray is going to make sure that all of your pencils are put away. Start checking your homework. You're welcome to pause this video at any moment. I'm going to go ahead and skip on through. Here's the next slide of homework. If you don't have feet on number 19, you know that it's -1. Again, you can pause at any time. Here was the back. Make sure you either have the answers written in the top boxes or the problem written in the bottom or the word. Each problem on the homework is 2 points apiece. You're going to calculate your own grade. Do not pass your paper forward without a grade on the top. Calculate your grade, pass it forward with your name on it. And then get ready for your notes. You should update your table of contents. Today's title is Adding and Subtracting Like Fractions, and the homework assignment is written on the board. Okay, now you should already know how to add and subtract fractions, but we're going to take it a step further. Today we're going to look at adding and subtracting like fractions. Like fractions mean that they have the same denominator. Here's what's going to be different. I'm going to be giving you negative fractions as well. So, for those of you who are not fully mastered in your integer rules, you've got some studying to do. We have to be mastered in our integer rules because we're going to be applying them here with the fractions. They never go away. So look at the first example. You can number this one, example number 1. And it says 3/14 minus 5/14. Well, when we did integers, we talked about how subtraction means adding the opposite. So I'm going to rewrite this problem to an addition problem by adding the opposite. Change the subtraction to addition, make the second number the opposite sign. Now, it doesn't matter where your negative sign goes in a fraction. You could write it as -5/14. You could write it as 5/-14, or you could just stick the negative in front of the fraction, and it all means the same thing. We know that we don't do anything with our denominator when we're adding and subtracting fractions, so that stays the same. What you're focused on now is the numerator, 3 plus -5. Well, you know that if the signs are different when you're adding, you subtract the numbers. 5 minus 3 is 2. And 5 has a greater absolute value, so my 2 will be negative. Now you're noticing that this fraction is not simplified. We can divide by 2, so that would be -1/7. Make sure you're taking good notes. Here's example number 2. We have -1 and 7/8 minus 3 and 7/8. Again, we know subtraction is the same as addition if we add the opposite. Make the second number the opposite sign. Now, these numbers have same signs. When they have the same sign, we know that we just add the numbers. So I start with my fractions first. 7/8 plus 7/8 is 14/8. Keep the denominator. You only add the numerators. 1 plus 3 is 4, and I'm going to keep my sign negative. Now I have an improper fraction right here, so I need to simplify that. I'm going to divide. 14 divided by 8 is 1 and 6/8, or 1 and 3/4. So if I add that 1 and 3/4 with and this 1 and 3/4 is also negative. When you see the negative sign out here, that means everything about the mixed number is negative. You don't need a separate negative sign for the fraction next to the whole number. So -4 plus -1 and 3/4, your final answer should be -5 and 3/4. All right, this one is example number 3. We have 6 and 4/5 plus -2 and 3/5. Different signs mean subtract. So I put my larger absolute value number on top. I like to write them vertically so that you can see very easily if you need to regroup. It's very important that you write it vertically when you're subtracting. I notice here I don't need to regroup. 4 minus 3 is 1, and keep your denominator the same. 6 minus 2 is 4. Now, my answer is going to be positive because 6 and 4/5 has the larger absolute value, and it's positive. So 4 and 1/5 is your answer. On example number 4, B minus C. B is -3 and 4/9. Draw your holes. Please draw your holes. C is -8 and 5/9. If you don't draw your holes, you're very likely to lose a negative sign, and that's not good. We know subtraction means addition if we add the opposite. So my new expression is -3 and 4/9 plus +8 and 5/9 when I add the opposite. Notice these numbers have different signs, so that means I subtract them. I'm going to come over here and write them vertically. You should do the same. I can do 5 minus 4, so I don't need to borrow here, and that's 1/9, and 8 minus 3 is 5. Notice 8 and 5/9 is positive, and it has the greater absolute value, so 5 and 1/9 is your final answer. All right, that'll do it for the notes today. Your homework is being passed out by Miss Gray. You need to complete this for homework. You need to show all of your steps. If you turn in homework with no work, you will not receive credit. You can spend the rest of the class period getting started. Miss Gray will also be returning to you your quizzes today. Have a good day.